All right, everyone, welcome in to episode number 61. This is being recorded on January the 26th, 2023. Last episode, I would presume, for the first month of 2023. Can you believe that? We are already a 12th of the way through this new year. I guess it's really not a new year anymore. We're just firmly in it, and we are here to win it. My name is Nick Hill, live as always from Chattanooga, Tennessee, the United States, and joining me from down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you?
Good, doing good. Here in Brazil, things is starting to, getting heated as the season kind of starts to, unravel. We're gonna have our first, final game this weekend, and things are good. The rain finally stopped here, so it's been good enough to have, to face the rain every 5 p.m. So things are good, and a lot to talk about the NFL weekend. Some, you know, blenders, some questionable decisions, and a lot of things to recap over this football weekend.
Yeah, and also, too, big evening, a sports weekend here in Tennessee, not related to NFL, but to college basketball tonight. College game day is live at Thompson Bowling Arena in Knoxville, getting set for the Lady Vols hosting number 5 UConn. Lady Vols are on a 9-game winning streak against the UConn Huskies in a big rivalry game. This is the biggest rivalry game in all of women's basketball. Also, College Game Day will be sticking around in TBA on Saturday for the big home game against Texas, a top 10 matchup, and of course, Rick Barnes' former team. So, huge basketball weekend in Knoxville.
Yeah, I have some good memories. I actually covered when UConn went to Knoxville 2 years ago. Can't believe it's been 2 years since Gino Ariema came to Knox, and it was a good game.
Yeah,
I
we
believe
had a
the game
chance.
we totally had a chance on that game.
Yeah, and it's just it. They did too much there at the end. Hopefully, the UConn has an 11-game winning streak coming into this game. The Lady Vols have a 9-game winning streak coming into this game. I really do think that the Lady Vols, the way they've been playing recently, they have a shot. Of course, they won in the last second on Sunday in Missouri. So they really are getting a lot better. But now they're getting into the meat of the schedule. They have UConn tonight. They have LSU, who's number 3 in the country, and undefeated on Monday. In a few weeks, they have to go to number 1 South Carolina, who is the back-to-back defending national champion in women's basketball. So definitely, I really do think that this game obviously is huge, not just for this season, but it's just huge for the program because if you think about it, Pat Summitt and Pat Summitt and Gino Ariema, this rivalry built women's basketball. It really was the center point of women's basketball for many years. And yes, I know it isn't exactly what it once was. I mean, you still have Gino on one side, but you have one of Pat's former players and Kelly Harper on the other side. And this game still means a lot. I mean, I may not get as amped for Lady Vols games as I do for other sports. But for UConn, I definitely, this feels as big as any other rivalry game in any other sport because it's Gino. It's Gino versus Pat. It's the UConn connection, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Me too. When I covered the game back in 2021, it was down exciting. Of course, it wasn't a full Thompson Bowl Arena as it's gonna be tonight because there's still a lot of COVID restrictions. Now there's none, so it's gonna be a full crowd. And I feel that knock on Kelly Harper haven't won a big game. I feel like she haven't won like a
Yeah,
true really.
her biggest win definitely was, I would say, South Carolina 2 years ago. That was a pretty big one. She made the Sweet 16 last year, but still, Lady Vols, they're expecting to make Final Fours, and we haven't made the Final Four since 2008. And honestly, looking at the crowd here, it looks pretty full. I mean, it's only 719. Yeah, I'm assuming part of that is because of College Game Day, but it's going to be a full house tonight in TBA. And definitely a little bit later on in the show, I want to bring up some discussions that have been had on Vol social media circles about the crowds at TBA this year for specifically the men in those games. But hopefully, tonight we'll start some rowdy crowds here at TBA because definitely a lot of big basketball coming up, and obviously a huge chance here for the Lady Vols to get a big win because a win against UConn, I think, would go a long way to reestablishing the Lady Vols as a preeminent women's college basketball program.
I'll definitely. I feel like you give Kelly Harper a momentum from this program. I know you mentioned that win over South Carolina back in 2021. That's true. It was a huge game. I remember, interviewing Ray Burrell and the Kelly talking about it. That was a huge win. But I feel like UConn would definitely be a out of conference big win that I feel like Tennessee haven't had of those, especially when it comes to March.
Yeah, and you're going to really need players like Rakea Jackson, Tess Darby, Sarah Puckett to really step up. And obviously, the thing that would concern me most here is the interior presence. Obviously, they've been having to play all year without Damari Key because she had to basically hang it up because of blood clots. So obviously, having to fill that hole has been challenging for the Lady Vols, but they've been getting a lot better at that. And I think this is going to be an entertaining game down here in Knoxville. So I'm excited to see what they are able to do.
Yeah, that's true. It's going to be, Knoxville, I feel like has been, coming back as like the center of attention to sports kind of world. Last year with the Tennessee Volunteers in football making really come back, and college game day coming from Tennessee, Florida, and Tennessee, Alabama, now coming to the back-to-back, basketball games just showed the brand, and that's why, athletic director and Danny White contract was renewed. That's why he's now I think the highest earned contract by an AD in the SEC. That's why he got that, because he resurrected not only football but the Tennessee athletics as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess we can get into that while we're on that topic. Josh Heupel got a raise up to raise. He was at $5 million heading into this year, but now he's making $9 million per year, which still isn't anywhere close to the top. The top earning coaches, as you would imagine, is Nick Saban. He's making, I believe it was like $13.5 million a year, something like that. So obviously, between 9 and 13 million, I guess, really in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much of a difference. But still, obviously, I think Josh Heupel, essentially got his salary doubled, and Danny White's salary is up to now 2.2 million per year, which reports indicate that that's likely the highest for any athletic director in the country. Of course, since Danny White has come to Knoxville, the collective Vol athletic department has won 6 conference titles and has set records for fundraising. And of course, with the NIL situation, you look at the Ball Collective and Inspire Sports, some of the other entities around the program. Tennessee arguably is doing the best out of any school handling NIL. I mean, not every school is doing it well. Just look at Florida. I mean, they literally just lost their quarterback of the future because they couldn't pay their top quarterback. I mean, how deserved is this? Because I've seen arguments on both sides. I saw someone argue that, yes, while Tennessee had a great season this year, they're still not convinced Josh Heupel is the coach for the future. And they're not convinced that he's going to ever win a national title and that perhaps he's getting overpaid. And keep in mind, this person is also a kind of a Tennessee hater of sorts, but still it's interesting to get that perspective from outside the Tennessee fan base. But to me, this 2022 season was the most fun, the most exciting, the most rewarding football season ever, especially after years and years of struggling. I don't mind him getting this massive raise. I really do think it's different from a Mel Tucker situation, because that's what some people are trying to compare it to. But I think when you look at where Michigan State was, Michigan State, you knew that wasn't sustainable. You knew that was a fluke season last year. That was Kenneth Walker kind of carrying them. But with Tennessee, you look at the recruiting, you look at the resources, there's no reason to have a drop-off like Michigan State did.
No, and to think about it, Josh Heupel, new contract, he deserved. But Jones got a 2-year contract extension that would have been good through 2020 after leading the Vol in his second season to a 6-6 record.
Yeah.
Like, if Bud Jones on a 6-6 record got a contract extension, why not Josh Heupel, who came this close to playing for the national, at least for the college football semifinals?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if what the season the Heupel had doesn't constitute a raise, I don't know what does. I've seen what like Sonny Dykes said he deserves a raise for getting to the national title game. Um, but I think just looking at the context of what Heupel has done. I mean, think about. I mean, remember 24 months ago, like literally, I think it was last week was the 2-year anniversary of when Pruitt got fired. I think literally today is 2 years. Well, not maybe literally today. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Like January 2021. I remember vividly. January 2021.
Yeah, because today I'll make sure to put that in. And I forgot to mention this at the top. Today has been 2 years since Kobe Bryant tragically passed away in the helicopter accident. This all happened at roughly the same time. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, tomorrow's gonna be 2 years that Josh Heupel was hired.
That's right, because it was the day right after Kobe passed. Because this literally all happened at the same time.
No. Kobe was a year before. Kobe was January 26, 2020, because there were still crowds. I remember I was covering Lady Vols game, and there was like full crowds and stuff. It was January 26, 2020.
Oh, you're right.
In
Right.
3 years
ago.
Yeah. And Josh Heupel 2 years ago tomorrow was hired as the Tennessee football head coach.
Yeah, that whole all of 2020 is kind of like melded together because of for obvious reasons. But but like we were in a hopeless position 2 years ago, and now like where we are, like I was remarking this earlier. I was talking to my brother earlier. I was remarking this to him, like the past couple of seasons, like at this point in the year, I wouldn't be thinking about college football. I would just be kind of like, just kind of decompressing from it or whatever. Right now, I'm super excited. I'm already thinking about September. I'm already thinking about October. I'm thinking about what the Balls might be able to do. And it's thanks to what Danny White and Josh Heupel and the rest of the staff has done. And just for that alone, the races are worth it. And, what is the ceiling for Josh Heupel? I don't know. I don't know if he's ever going to win a national title here. Winning a national championship is super difficult. Getting to the college football playoffs is super difficult. And as long as we keep our current SEC alignment, which is likely going to change, we right now have the most dominant college football program in our division. So that's a very hard sell.
And I'll argue that, look how many years took for Tennessee football program from Johnny Majors to Philip Fulmer and all that momentum to win a national championship finally in January 1999. It had come for a long time. So
it took Kirby 5 years to win a national title. Like I don't think anyone should be expecting the Heupel just in any given year to win a national title, like because it's going to be difficult. But because I think the base expectations for me moving forward is at least 8 to 9 wins a season. That's anything below that any given year would be a major disappointment. And because I do want to see that we can consistently win 9+ games a season, because that puts you in a position where if you uptrend in a year, you're competing for the college football playoff, especially in the SEC and especially with the 12-team playoff that's coming. Because all you're going to need to do is win 10 games a season, really, to compete for a national title starting after this year. So, I mean, I really do think we could be in a position to do that.
And not only Daniel White, I feel like, of course, Tony Vitello seemed like a coach, a really good coach, but he gave probably more momentum for Tony Vitello, and Kelly Harper wasn't, Daniel White's hire, but definitely he had impact on their work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think really honestly, you can go this goes all the way back to Donde Plowman. Because remember, she took over shortly before all this happened, because you have the whole situation with Beverly Davenport and the trustees, and they kick Davenport out. They bring in Plowman. And Plowman, because remember, she didn't just have Pruitt fired. She also had Fulmer step down. And the way she handled that was super, super effective and super well. And it really has been a top-down effort to get the program back to where it's needed to be. So it's really, massive applause to everyone involved, because they've really turned the direction of this program and really have saved it. because it feels like it was a dying product a couple of years ago, and now it's back. I mean, I don't know if you saw this today, Gus. A friend was telling me that admissions to the University of Tennessee next year have risen by 45% for next year. That is the football effect. That everyone wants to be in Knoxville now, and it's just super exciting.
And not only and also it's the effect of what the crowds have been doing from it all came back. I feel like on the spring of 2021 in baseball, that momentum of fandom for Tennessee athletics, all submitted, all like I feel like came down to that 52-49 win over Alabama. I feel like Tennessee fan base went from negative to positive.
Oh yeah, it really hasn't changed since. Yeah, definitely Tony Vitello. I mean, I've heard several people say this. He truly is the spark in the ointment that Tennessee needed, and it's been an upward trajectory since. And that's why one of the topics I really want to get into today, and I'll save Nico here for a little bit later. So it has to concern the basketballs. They're right now ranked number 4 in the country. They just dominated Georgia last night, won by 29 points. They dominated LSU on the road in Baton Rouge, and they're getting ready to host number 10 Texas on Saturday in a avenge grudge match. Because remember, the Vols, they really struggled down there in Austin last year. They stormed back in the last 5 minutes and ended up losing by a point. Very heartbreaking loss there. And of course, I know Rick Barnes would love to beat his former team in Texas. But a topic of discussion I've seen all week is kind of people talking about how it feels like the basketball crowds this year have not been super juiced, especially like they were in football, like they've been in the past for basketball. And I really felt like this came to a head in the Kentucky game a few weeks ago. It did not feel like TBA has felt in the past. And I've seen some people say, well, now with football being back, people are going to be more amped for that. So basketball doesn't seem as exciting. Some people are blaming the style of play because we're a defensive team. People don't get as excited for that. Some people are feeling like there's an inevitable dread of losing in March. I don't know how big of a problem this is, but it feels different. And I really hope this weekend kind of changes that discussion, because I mean, TBA to me has always been an amazing home environment.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thompson Boy Arena is one of those environments that when it gets on fire, it's electric. I remember that when Kentucky was the number 4 team in the country, and I feel like it was the beginning of the Rick Barnes era. They came to play in Knoxville. It was so electric. I feel like the crowd helped the Vols win back in 2017, 2018. But definitely, I feel like, the fan base sometimes kind of get diluted when one sports program goes better than the other. It kind of makes the excitement kind of more diluted.
Yeah, and then I think also another part of the discussion is, do fans get bored with winning? I think at this point, we expect the basketball team to just be really good every single year, and we're all just sitting around, well, let's see what we do in March. But I almost feel like we're not appreciating what they're doing now. I mean, this team is 17-3. They're literally fighting for a 1 seed right now. This might be one of the best teams we've ever had in school history. And, I do feel like almost in a way we forget that the Tennessee basketball program is not storied. We've never been to a Final Four. We've only been to one Elite Eight ever. And I feel like we should appreciate what they're doing. I understand, they have their offensive issues. It isn't the prettiest basketball to watch at times, but they go out there and they fight hard every single game. And even in the games they've lost, it wasn't a lack of effort. It was just, execution. And, execution is something you can fix. Heart isn't, but the heart is not the issue with this team. So I get excited to watch them every time because I know having a top 5 team is something you don't have every single year. So I'm going to appreciate it when they do have a top 5 team. And I wish I could get to some games if I still lived in Knoxville.
I feel like the fans were routed when it was a new product, because I remember back, after the Bruce Pearl era, back in, 2010s, 2011, 12, 14. I remember when I arrived in Knoxville 2015, my first ever sports event in Knoxville was a Tennessee Arkansas game, and it was okay crowd. It wasn't electric because there was, not exciting time for basketball. But now, and then Rick Barnes came. It was totally different. I feel like it all, erupted in 2018, 2019. That season, it felt that it was the season to win. That loss over Purdue. And the fans kind of, oh, we saw that you guys are good. Now we expect you to deliver.
Yeah, I do think that's part of it, and I think the next step for this program, the last step, I mean, is to win in March. I mean, they literally won the SEC tournament last year. They have accomplished everything else you could accomplish. Um, but I mean, the last step is winning March Madness, and that's going to be a very difficult task when you get there. So, um, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm very curious to see what the crowd is like on Saturday for this Texas game, and I think this is an interesting game. Texas, they lost Chris Beard because Chris Beard got into that situation, domestic assault situation, so they ended up firing him. And now Texas is coming in. They still are playing pretty well, but it definitely feels like they have had a bit of a drop off since the whole Chris Beard incident. But, I'll just be curious. Obviously, you just have to kind of wait and see what type of offense Tennessee brings here because Texas's strength would be their defense, although they have had some lapses on defense. Like, for example, they gave up 116 points to Kansas State, who, by the way, if you haven't watched Kansas State this year, insane team. They're ranked number 5 in the country right now. So Texas is 17-3 as well coming into this game. It's going to be a good one. And, I don't know how much you've seen of Texas, but I think this will be a tight one, and this really just comes down to our ability to execute on offense. And I just feel like in any big game, that's going to be the case because I trust our defense to hold them to 50, 60-ish points. It's just our offense is where with any of these big games that'll be my concern.
Oh yeah, that Kentucky game that give a little scared as we discuss about the effectiveness of this team playing, on a big spot. But maybe if they had some hiccups on the regular season, they'll be able to fix when it comes to March. Maybe, and that Texas game, is the second challenge at home. So I guess it's part of the SEC Big 12 challenge, right? I like that. I think there should be a thing for football. I don't know why football doesn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, and the SEC Big 12 challenge this week, there's some good ones. When you outside of Texas, Tennessee, you have Auburn at West Virginia. Alabama goes to Oklahoma. Alabama, they got tested by Mississippi State last night. Only won that thing by 3 points. They were trailing most of it. You have Iowa State, Missouri, TCU, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Baylor, Kentucky, Kansas at Kentucky, Florida at Kansas State. So you really have some good matchups there.
But imagine if you do this on college football. Do you think it would probably be by week 1 or 2, or by halfway through the season? But it'll be good.
They try to do it by champion versus champion, second versus second, and so forth. So in our case, I'm trying to think. So you would have TCU versus Georgia, which we just saw, and that was ugly. You would have
no. It would be Georgia, Kansas State.
Oh yeah, that's right. It would be Georgia, Kansas State, and I think that would be a beatdown too. You'd have LSU versus TCU, which I think would be a good one. I'm not sure who finished third in the Big 12 because that's who we would play. Hold on, let me look because I don't know offhand.
I think it was Texas. No.
Yeah, it was. You would have Texas, Tennessee, and that would be an interesting one. You'd have probably Texas Tech versus Alabama, Oklahoma State versus South Carolina.
But not only I feel like not regarding the the standings, but I feel like if you force a team to be like, hey, this week is a SEC Big 12 challenge, and this week week 1 or 2 or 3, you have to face a team from another division, another conference, instead of scheduling cupcakes.
Oh yeah, have you seen Georgia's schedule this year? So speaking of bad schedules, their non-conference opponents it's Samford, Ball State, Akron, and Georgia Tech. Like it's 3 horrible teams in Georgia Tech because they dropped out of an Oklahoma game because of the fact that Oklahoma's coming to the SEC. Um, Georgia's schedule is a complete joke. Really, the only losable game, honestly, is really Tennessee. That's really it. Because I don't really see Auburn being that much of a threat to them. I don't see Florida being a threat to them. Really, it's Tennessee. Maybe South Carolina at home, but it's just, it's at Tennessee for Georgia, really.
Yeah, but because I like when it comes down to it, the SEC Big 12 challenge, like who are the best conference? I like that kind of competition. I feel like in football you'll be even more kind of more competitive.
The SEC would dominate. The SEC would absolutely dominate. Let's just be real. Like Georgia would destroy Kansas State. Bama would destroy TCU. Well, I don't know. Well, actually, LSU, TCU would be a good one. I think Tennessee would beat Texas. I think Bama would destroy Texas Tech.
I mean, Alabama destroyed Kansas State. Georgia destroyed TCU.
I mean, we destroyed Clemson. They're the top team in the ACC. So, I mean,
LSU destroyed Purdue, which was the runner-up in the Big Ten.
Yep. So it's SEC supreme. I mean, SEC had some bad losses in the bottom, some of the not so great teams. But like the top 4 teams in the SEC absolutely dominated.
Yeah, but in basketball, it's more parity. If you like.
Oh yeah. Yeah, SEC doesn't dominate in basketball like that, but it would be an interesting idea. I think the only way it would work would be SEC Big Ten.
Yeah, especially when UCLA and USC comes to it.
I mean, imagine this. Imagine a USC Tennessee game in football. How many points would be scored in that game?
Well, Caleb Williams versus Joe Milton.
Yeah. First one to 60 wins that game. That would be an incredible football game. But
well, definitely.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Tennessee beats Texas. I think it'll be a close one. So I don't know what you were going to pick.
Yeah, I think Tennessee also beats Texas. I think it's going to be a hard one, but I think it's going to come down to a fourth quarter performance.
Absolutely. And while we're sure on the Vols, real quick, just back on the football side, just want to quickly mention Nico Amiavelia. I actually got to watch him play the other night, at least for the first quarter, because the NFL Network stream just completely fell apart on me. But I did get to watch him play a little bit in the Polynesian Bowl, and I liked what I saw. He's very mobile, very tall, very quick. He had like a 58-yard run, made some really good throws on the run. Won offensive MVP. He completed 13 of 20 passes, 186 yards, 1 touchdown. He did throw an interception in triple coverage, which wasn't great, but that's stuff that you can fix. 65 yards on 5 attempts. And, you can see why Josh Heupel went all the way out to California to get this guy, because this guy has a huge arm. He threw a ball like 60 yards downfield. Maybe a little shy of what Joe Milton has on his cannon, but he has a cannon himself, and he's just as quick. You can tell he's already a pretty good decision maker for a young age, and really just his mobility, his ability to fill the pocket. I'm excited to see what he's able to do. I don't know if it means anything for next season, because I think next season is Joe Milton's team, but I'm excited to see what Heupel does and Hazel and the rest of the staff does with Nico as they develop him.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype, but I feel like Josh Heupel needs to, for now, give the team to Joe Milton. He earned it, especially after the Orange Bowl performance.
Oh, absolutely. This is Joe Milton's team. Some people say, we should start Nico. No, this is Joe Milton's team. He's earned the right. And we'll take it from there, because I think Joe Milton will do a great job next year as the quarterback. All right, one more college football topic before we head into NFL. I don't know if you've seen this Ed Reed situation, Gus, because let me just explain it here real quick. So Ed Reed had been hired. They had agreed, him and Bethune-Cookman in HBCU in Daytona Beach, Florida. They had agreed in principle for him to become the next head coach. Basically, it's going to be the Deion Sanders for Bethune-Cookman. But he started complaining a lot about, this campus is very unclean. There's not a lot of high-quality stuff here, because Bethune-Cookman, like a lot of other HBCUs, does not have the funding of a D1. So Ed Reed goes on to Instagram Live in front of his entire team because, like, he's literally sitting in front of his whole entire team. He has someone filming him, and he goes on like a 17-minute rant, an explicative rant, talking about how the school administration doesn't care about the players, they don't care about the school, and basically they don't want him there because they won't pay up. And then Deion Sanders joins the call, and he's like, "Yeah, brother, you're fighting the good fight, and you're being done wrong here." So Dion basically backslaps Bethune-Cookman, and Ed Reed walks off about the job. And now Bethune-Cookman doesn't have a head coach, and they're kind of embarrassed publicly. I personally think this could be a sign of trouble for HBCUs because for all the positive press that Deion Sanders brought to Jackson State and HBCUs, I almost feel like there's a downside because Deion left Jackson State to go to Colorado, and no matter how attractive HBCUs can be, no matter how much energy there is in the community for these places to be top tier schools, it just always feels like stuff like this is going to pop up to hold them back.
And because I feel like the Deion Sanders story was one in like probably one in a million. Like, I know he brought a lot of attention and a good story, but he already left because he knew he hit a ceiling there. He wanted to go somewhere that at least he could be competitive. He found in Colorado Buffaloes because at least they are in the Pac-12. They are in the in a Power 5 conference, and they have people have to understand that HBCUs are not as you said funded as top universities in the Power 5 schools. They have their limitations. They have when a coach takes a job, they have to work with the schools, not expecting the school to hand everything.
Yeah, and it's honestly like when you look at the school itself now, there's student protests going on at the school because they're upset about living conditions. Like a student says that she has mold on her ceiling of her room, and like there's sittings going on, and it's just a really bad deal for Bethune-Cookman. But it really goes beyond sports. But it's interesting how the Ed Reed situation kind of has permeated into this campus-wide situation, and how it shows how sometimes sports can kind of open the lid to so many other issues for a university.
It's because now sports are the front kind of, like when people think about universities right now, they, of course, academic is important, but now sports is also, I think, is neck and neck with because as you said, admissions for University of Tennessee went up 45%. I know the university has their great academic qualities, but if you're winning in your major sport, like Tennessee has football, Kentucky has basketball, you're gonna draw more interest for students.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately for HBCUs, they don't get that TV coverage ever. I mean, even Jackson State, I mean, I saw them on TV once, and that was on ABC for the Celebration Bowl or the Black National Championship. Otherwise, you had to watch them on ESPN Plus. It's a really bad situation, and it's tough because I really want to see those HBCUs get better and get more competitive. They're never going to be able to truly compete with the big boys. And also in this situation too, I don't know if Reed handled this correctly. I don't know if he should have Instagram lived his address to the team like that. I've noticed it too with like Reed and Deion Sanders. I've noticed that a lot of stuff in Colorado, they publicly throw all this stuff out there. Like a lot of Deion Sanders' addresses to his teams are online. It's weird kind of seeing the sausage being made behind the scenes as it happens, unlike versus like a documentary like Last Chance U. And I wonder if that's going to backfire at some point.
I feel like everything that is over publicized can backfire in a way or the other. Like when you're overexposed something, flaws of course gonna pop up, and things that can come and bite you at the end. So I don't know. I know Deion Sanders is known for be a flashy, loudmouth kind of coach, and it was as a player, but and it helped over his short coach career. Look how he went from Jackson State to Colorado. but maybe it might prevent Sanders from reach even further goals as a college coach.
Yeah, especially considering it's going to be a very difficult road. If you look at their schedule next year, they have a lot of tough games there for Colorado. I'll be very curious to see how this whole situation unfolds. All right, let's get into some NFL playoffs here. And unfortunately, Gus, how about those Dallas Cowboys? Un- Unfortunate.
I I don't think they play. I know we're gonna talk about the last play that was horrible, but overall they played, I think, as good as they could on the road. It's just it when all came down to stop you know 49ers offense, especially Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. And in Dallas, I know they lost Tony Pollard, at halftime, but it just showed that as rich and popular Dallas Cowboys are, they don't have the it players to win. Like it clearly that Dak, I call it Dak generation, which this group of players that has been kind of on the Cowboys since 2016. So it's been 7 years since the first big run that Dak had as a rookie, all the way to a divisional round, losing to the Packers on the last minute field goal, and everybody felt, oh, it was so close, and that so close mentality has been drifting apart and apart and apart and apart. So I don't know how to do that in the NFL. That's why general managers exist and owners, but I feel like I, I don't know if rebuild is the right word, but Dallas has to bring in players that are truly winners, a player that has been won before. That's what Flamengo did here in Brazil. Flamengo was kind of like the Dallas Cowboys, like stagnated, not winning, not like kind of state championships, which like winning your division. Like, okay, it's you can hung in a banner, it's nice for like a 2 weeks, but everybody cares about at least winning your conference or winning the Super Bowl. And Flamengo was only winning that, but then Flamengo brought up players that won before, like Gabigol, Bruno Henrique, Rafinha, like players that had won big titles before, and their mentality completely changed. Of course, Jorge Jesus as the head coach was, a cherry in the cake, but I don't think Dallas has like players that have not a winning mentality, but like kind of have the talent to win it all.
Yeah, and the thing about the Dallas Cowboys, and I've noticed this all year, it's not like they play bad most of the time. It's, they obviously have one of the most talented rosters. They do uh, a lot of good things most of the time. It's just very specific moments. There's one moment that stands out to me from the regular season, and they did win this game. But when I saw this sequence, I knew there's going to be another sequence somewhere later down the road that's going to screw them over. It was Christmas Eve against the Eagles. There was like 2:10 left on the clock. Um, so what happens is that Dallas has the ball. They're trying to run out some clock. Um, and what happens is Dak, they end up throwing an not an interception, an incompletion. So the clock stops again. It's like 2:05. It was like a first down initially. So you're down to second down. And then instead of like passing the ball at 2:05, because think about it, like in this game, the 49ers, when they had the ball with like 2 minutes left, they threw the ball because they knew the next play the clock was going to be stopped regardless. And smart NFL teams now do this basically all the time because they know, well, we basically get a free pass play without a time penalty. In that game, they decided to run the ball and they ran it out of bounds. Um, and it was really just terrible clock management because they basically gifted the Eagles a final possession that they should have never had in that game. And just seeing that kind of irresponsible clock management, it really kind of set the stage for what we saw Sunday. First of all, truly where the Cowboys lost this game initially, you got to go back to the first half. That interception deep in the red zone was a backbreaker. It was a close. It was a 3-point game. You had to come out of that with at least a field goal. But Dak Prescott, time after time, just throws backbreaking interceptions. And all these people were running around all year saying, well, all these interceptions for Dak Prescott, they don't matter. And the same thing can go for Josh Allen, too. All these interceptions that Josh Allen throws, they don't matter. They look at all the touchdowns they produce and all the yards they throw for. Um, but we've seen, but we saw just how truly crucial those interceptions were in this low scoring game. I mean, Brock Purdy, he wasn't spectacular on Sunday. He only threw for 214 yards, but the most important stat that he has, a big goose egg in that interception column. He didn't make any mistakes. That is the difference in this game. And then in the fourth quarter, late in that game, when Dallas has a chance with one more, um, it's like a four. It was like what, 3rd and 8 or something. Dak Prescott throws 2 yards downfield. On numerous occasions in this game, on every 3rd down, he wasn't throwing beyond the sticks. There's just time after time after time where it's like what Kirk Cousins did against the Giants, where you remember the last play that Kirk Cousins had for Minnesota this year. Kirk Cousins drops back, he throws a ball to, I think it was Irv Smith, 3 yards downfield. He gets tackled, game over. Dak Prescott, even up to the final play, threw the ball under 10 yards downfield. He wasn't throwing the ball deep. He wasn't trying to stretch the field. They're doing the short thing, and the short game was not working because when it's 3rd and 8, it's the NFL. You got to throw the ball downfield. And just time, I mean, think about this. He has 206 yards on 23 completions. That's less than 10 yards a completion. That is not going to get it done in the NFL. You have to stretch the field. And also, one more thing on the time management for the Cowboys. What was going on there at the end where they let 30 seconds run off the clock in the punt? Like, literally, they were just standing around and let 30 seconds go off. Well, I mean, what in the world was Mike McCarthy thinking? And this is the first time time management has been an issue.
And after that play, Dak Prescott almost got a safety.
Yeah. I mean, that entire last drive, I mean, the whole offense that drive was throwing to Dalton Schultz on the sideline. And it wasn't working half the time. So, like, they were trying to get up to midfield for a Hail Mary. They could only get up to the 25. And then...
No. And before that, and they only went to 25 because when Dak throws, I think it was to...
Dalton Schultz.
Michael Schultz. He did not have both of his feet on the ground.
Yeah, like unnecessary. Like the Niners were giving you easy completions. They just weren't taking advantage of it at all, and just wasting so much time. They got like 4 plays off when they could have gone off at least 6 to 7. Just a gross mismanagement on every single level for the Cowboys. And then the final play, they initially lined up in the formation, and then they call a timeout, and
no, they didn't, because they were out of timeouts, because they have to use all of their timeouts on the 49ers last offensive drive, because the Niners had the control of the clock. So they did not have even. That's why there was an issue. They did not have even a timeout, and Fluminense scored in the Real Estate Championship 1-0. But I feel like in the end, those timeouts were, the Dallas had to use on the San Francisco last offensive drive were costly.
Yeah. But still, I feel like from what I remember, that there was a stoppage of play right there before that final play. So
it was because it was a stoppage of play, because that was the the catch that ended up being an incomplete pass instead of a. That's why it was stopped.
Yeah, and so from there, they They come out in the exact same formation, and I still don't know how this play was supposed to work. So Ezekiel Elliott snaps the ball back to Dak Prescott. The linemen are out wide. He throws it like 5 yards downfield, and the guy gets crushed, and that's the game.
And Zeke gets crushed too.
Oh, yes, he got crushed. I mean, like quite literally. So San Francisco, what they could have done there is put 3 players on Ezekiel Elliott, and Dak Prescott would have not had any time to do anything. I mean, it didn't. I don't know how that was supposed to work. Like, it's the worst trick play since the Colts decided to snap the ball with like 1 player surrounded by 3 players on a fake punt. I don't know if you've seen that play, but
Yeah, against the Patriots, who can forget?
yeah,
That
it's just it's one of the absolute dumbest things I've ever seen, and it really, if you're a Cowboys fan, that really sums up, I think, the last 27 years for the Dallas Cowboys right there. Um, that
how can
whole,
it be? How can it be a team as big, as rich, as popular as the Dallas Cowboys? Almost 3 decades without a title.
yeah.
How? How?
I mean, you have to question: are they really? I mean, the ratings say yes, they are that big of a team. The merchandise sales say yes, they are that big of a team. The attendance says yes, they are that big of a team. But performance-wise, no. I mean, you think about Manchester United in the Premier League; they've struggled for a couple of years, but it hasn't been 30 years that Man U has been struggling. And Man U to me is kind of the closest comparison in all sports to the Cowboys. Um, yeah,
Flamengo, they struggle. I'll say, from 2000 until 2018, they struggle. I know they won one Brazilian national championship. 2009 was a big fluke, but now they're dominant again. I know they had a lot of financial issues, but the Cowboys don't have that. It's just, you know, I know Jerry Jones was important as a owner when he first bought the Cowboys, and the partnership with Jimmy Johnson, then Brian Schwitzler, and Troy Aikman. But after that, the Cowboys couldn't renew.
yeah, yeah, and it's just it feels like they've been through a lot of ups and downs. It feels like to me the true year they really screwed up was 2007 when they had the 1 seed and they let the Giants come in and beat them. And it just feels like since then they just never truly got back. I mean, I know they had the year against the Packers and Dak's first year. Um, they had the whole catch with the Dez Bryant situation, but the Dallas Cowboys are they just feel like they're going to constantly come up short, especially with Dak Prescott. Unfortunately, this guy, he's just not clutch. And it's unfortunate because he is a good quarterback, but there are tiers, there are levels, and he's just not at the top. And it doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback.
He's on the Kirk Cousins kind of tier.
Yep. And like there's a lot of teams who would die to have Dak Prescott. I would like to have Dak Prescott in Tennessee. I mean, he would be an upgrade. But I don't think Dak Prescott would take the Titans to a Super Bowl. It's just not that type of quarterback.
What Dak Prescott is going to become probably in a couple of years is a really good backup quarterback, like a Teddy Bridgewater, or Bruno Sonic is great.
I think he'll have a starting job forever. But it'll be like Kirk Cousins, where yes, Kirk Cousins is going to be a starter next year, but you also know deep down that Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott are they're never going to win at big. Also, UConn, Tennessee has just started in Knoxville. UConn hit a 3 on their opening possession, so be monitoring that.
And shout out to Bruno Slonik. We're going to talk about your New York Giants because they also had a terrible game. But as a Giants fan, he said the Cowboys never disappoints me.
Oh yeah, and everyone else loves to hate on the Dallas Cowboys. But one of these years, the Dallas Cowboys are going to break their drought. I truly believe that. Won't be this.
I hope so. I hope so. I think the networks are dying for it. Especially CBS, NBC. and Fox to have the Super Bowl, they're dying to have the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl.
Oh, absolutely. Um, it just won't be this year. Also, I think the other really big disappointment from this weekend, Buffalo. I mean, seriously, think about this entire month. Like it was the um, the perfect storyline, right? Like you have the Mark Hamlin situation. He's recovering. He's on the mend. He's literally in the stadium on Sunday. You're at home in a game that arguably you didn't deserve to host because you probably were going to lose to Cincinnati on that Monday Night Football game. You were trailing at that point. Cincinnati was driving when that happened. And if Cincinnati had won that game, they would have been winning. And this almost feels like karmic justice in a way, because Cincinnati, if you look at everything that had happened, if they had lost to the Ravens the week after, they would have had to potentially go to Baltimore, even though they were still technically AFC North champions. They had to go to Buffalo, even though they, through no fault of their own, they didn't get a chance to fairly play for the 2 seed. And now the Bengals walk into Buffalo and they didn't just beat the Bills; they dominated the Bills. And I really think the most surprising element of this is not Joe Burrow going off, because we know Joe Burrow, he's going to show up, he's going to play well, he's calm, collected, he's completely in control. Jamar Chase looks good, but defensively and on the lines of scrimmage, the Buffalo Bills are never going to win a Super Bowl if they don't learn to run the ball. Like, here's the thing: your best runner for Buffalo is Josh Allen. And in the NFL, you're not winning a Super Bowl if your best runner is your quarterback. You got to have some running backs to take off some pressure to open up the defense. And the Bills, when you look at it, they had 58 rushes, 58 running yards in this game. And that's like 3 yards a carry. That's not good enough. And then on the other side, they couldn't get to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had a white uniform, and obviously it was snowing, and there was nothing on that uniform. That defensive line could not get any pressure on Joe Burrow. The Bengals running game was very effective all day. They had like 5 yards a carry. And you got to remember that Cincinnati had 3 of their starting offensive linemen out in this game. They just got destroyed in the offensive on the trenches. And you think about when you're in Buffalo, it's cold. The trenches become that much more important. And Buffalo just got destroyed at both of those lines. And Josh Allen, unfortunately, was not a miracle worker, as that deep ball just was not working in the snow for him.
Oh yeah, I feel like also Sean McDermott. I don't think he built an identity for the offensive side, especially after Brian Daboll left. So is Buffalo wasting great years of Josh Allen, not only due to his contract, but also due his football ability?
Yes, but then you also have to ask, have we overinflated Josh Allen? Because he's still, I mean, he's easily a top 5, top 10 quarterback, right? But if you really look at the stats, really think about statistics here, he has no MVPs. He obviously has never been to the Super Bowl. He's never won the AFC. Obviously, he always finishes below Patrick Mahomes. He's never been the best quarterback in any season. If you really think about it, he's got about the same resume as a Russell Wilson. Is he that next Russell Wilson? Remember, Russell Wilson was, we considered him to be one of the top quarterbacks for year after year after year, but he never won outside of 2013 when he had easily the best defense in the entire league. I almost feel like Josh Allen might be going into that category, and that might be a hot take.
And then you must feel that last season was the chance where they had a good offensive coordinator. Probably I also compare to the Falcons quarterback in 2016, Matt Ryan. Probably like a Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan had a tremendous, great season, but he couldn't win. And Kyle Shanahan left, he fell apart.
Oh, absolutely. And Ken Dorsey definitely. Some of the play calling, It feels like it wasn't balanced at all. But you can't blame them because they can't run the ball. And as I said, especially in Buffalo, where you know it's going to be snowing in January, and if you're going to play well during the regular season and get home games, you're going to have to run the ball at home. You don't have a dome. And I know they're debating whether or not to build a dome. Maybe they really should consider building a dome because they're not winning an outside game in Buffalo if they can't run the ball. I'm sorry. That's just not going to work in January when you know it's going to snow. And really, I feel like we almost should have seen this coming. Because I know you picked the Bengals to win last week. I still believed in the Bills because I felt like the storyline was too good. But it was just bad. This is a bad loss for the Bills. It's not the fact they lost; it's the fact they got blown out. And I feel like they're never going to get as favorable of a path as they were going to get this year. I mean, think about it. If they had won, they'd be playing in Atlanta this weekend. They wouldn't even have to go to Kansas City, and that would have been such a favorable path, especially now with Mahomes perhaps being injured, and they just threw it away.
And now Cincinnati has all the momentum because Kansas City now, with, as you said, probably Patrick Mahomes not be able to play. Cincinnati, they are ready to face a road environment.
Oh, absolutely. And the injury update keeps on going back and forth. So right now, he practiced in full today. So I know he was out yesterday. He's practicing today. So I truly believe he's going to play. Now, what's he going to be like? I don't know. I mean, he still looked good in the rest of that game after his ankle. Granted, he was playing Jacksonville. And Jacksonville's not Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a lot better team than Jacksonville. I feel like Patrick Mahomes, he's really gonna have to play at his top tier ability because we all talk about Joe Burrow, but this Bengals defense is legit. I mean, think about what they've done in the past 2 seasons, especially on the road in playoff games. They show up and they ball. When they turn over Ryan Tannehill 3 times, they completely shut down the Bills' offense this year. Last year, they shut out the Chiefs in the second half on the road. This Bengals defense is super underrated. I mean, think about it. Even in the Super Bowl, they held the Rams to only 20 points. They had a chance to win that football game. So this is going to be very difficult, I think, for the Chiefs. At least we are getting an actual home game here. I'm glad we are not going to experiment with a conference championship neutral site game. That's for sure. And I feel like Arrowhead, they're going to really have to come up and show out. And maybe the 12th man here can be a difference in this Chiefs-Bengals matchup.
Because, the Bengals, they are the underdog. They are, have to go on the road again. But again, they were the AFC champions for a reason. Zach Taylor's doing a tremendous job, out coaching Sean McDermott. And, I feel like, and you saw the Bills GM kind of complaining that to build a team like the Bengals or Jacksonville or even Buffalo, you need to have a rookie quarterback contract.
Yeah, I saw that. And it certainly is interesting. Because, it feels like our complaint with Green Bay. That's been what we're talking about with Aaron Rodgers all year and how they can't build because of that contract. The Titans have found themselves in a similar position with the Ryan Tannehill contract. But on the opposite side, Kansas City is still the number 1 seed, even though Patrick Mahomes has an incredible contract, But you could also look at Denver. What they're paying Russell Wilson, and now and obviously that's not working out. Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, what they're paying him, that's remained to be seen. But it's all about the personnel that's around the quarterback. If the quarterback's good enough, then they're worth any amount of money because quarterback is the most important position. Patrick Mahomes is worth every single one of his millions that he's getting paid right now because he's the best quarterback in the league. I mean, it's not even close. So, but at the same time, if you don't have a top tier quarterback, then maybe you would be better off with, someone on a rookie contract who can get the job done and you're able to really build up the rest of the team.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's hard just because in the NFL, it feels like more and more about earn versus deserved. Because, like, the Dak Prescott contract, he deserved, but he didn't earn it. And the Bills are going to have to pay Josh Allen really soon.
Yeah. And I would imagine they're not going to let him walk. I mean, that'd be crazy. I mean, you invested too much into him with a draft pick to just
Yeah,
let.
but look at the drama Lamar Jackson's doing ballboard. Don't you think, it's not going to be easy negotiation with
No,
Bills and Josh Allen?
no, and the Ravens, it looks like they're completely walk when they let their OC walk, which I think is a sign to me that they're just ready to revamp. And it's going to be very fascinating to see what Baltimore does moving forward without Lamar Jackson, because they really had to build their team specifically around him. And now you got to deconstruct that team, and you really have nothing left on offense without Lamar Jackson. So, and the Bills to me feel similar. Like, and look at how Stephon Diggs reacted. Like, Stephon Diggs was a very, very unhappy camper after the end of that game. And you almost going to wonder if there's some dissension within that locker room, you know?
Yeah, because basically Stephon Diggs feel under throw. Like, he wasn't getting too much of the ball.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he did not get utilized. I think he was held to what, 4 catches? Let me pull up the stats here on this, because his name did not get called very often in this game. I mean, it's crazy to think about. They only scored 3 points in the second half. Yeah, Stephon Diggs, 4 catches, 35 yards. It's just not gonna work, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I think the Bills are gonna have a kind of rocky off season.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, because you got to think about it, the Chiefs and Bengals aren't going anywhere, so you got to find a way to get past them. And right now, they both own you, so it's going to be
The
tough.
only thing that probably is going to keep the Bills coming back to the playoffs is the lousy division, because I don't think the Jets are going to be, even though they hire Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator, but I know how much he can develop. And the Jets still don't have a number one quarterback, because I don't think they're going to keep Zach Wilson as number one. After the whole Mike White, Zach Wilson kind of back and forth.
I mean, yeah, they definitely got to figure that out. But if they can get a quarterback, I mean, that's a good roster, especially defensively. And they got a lot of good young talent on that offensive side. Get Brees Hall back. You got Garrett Wilson. I really like what the Jets have. And I'll say this too: the Dolphins. They got to figure out can Tua be their guy? Can he stay healthy? Because if he can stay healthy, the Dolphins become really dangerous. Now, if he can't stay healthy, then you got to figure out a way to get another quarterback. Then if you can do that, then the Dolphins probably have the best just all around offensive talent in the division. I mean, having a Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle combined are better than Stephon Diggs. It's just they don't have anyone to throw them right now consistently.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I feel like they have to find a path towards using Josh Allen in an effective way, but kind of build the offensive up and find an identity. Because when you rely too much on the talent, it kind of like masquerades what your true identity is on the offensive side.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, if you look at the talent they have, I mean, there's a ton of it. It's just at the end of the day, though, you're going to have a quarterback, especially in the AFC. When you're facing, I mean, Skylar Thompson didn't even play bad against Buffalo. It's just, he just didn't have enough to overcome Buffalo on the road. So it's not going to be easy for the Bills at all, because their division is going to be tough and the conference is going to be tough. So this really felt like the year. And I almost wonder if this is going to become similar for them, like last year's loss to the Bengals for the Titans was, because that was really, really bad. Do have a bit of an update from Knoxville. Bad start, unfortunately, for the Lady Vols. Right now it's 31-15 UConn. With a minute left in the first quarter, and the Lady Vols, unfortunately, actually, I don't think they turned it over. They are keeping it down on this end, but not a great start for Kelly Harper and the ladies. So hopefully they can claw their way back into that one. But I do want to briefly talk about the Jaguars and the Giants. They both lost on Saturday. They were both underdogs, so I do feel like it was somewhat expected for both losses. Now, the Jaguars had a very tight game. They had chances. They just weren't able, it didn't materialize for them to pull off the upset. The Giants got absolutely smoked by the Eagles, 38-7. But I'll say this about the Giants: yes, they got blown out in the final game, and it wasn't great. But I mean, who expected the Giants to be in this position in the preseason? They improved a ton this year, and yes, they were nowhere close to a title contender. But I still think it was, for both of these teams, a great season. I mean, the Jaguars completed one of the biggest turnarounds in NFL history, and they, I think, clearly will be the favorites to win the AFC South next year, as the Colts, Titans, and Texans are all going to be rebuilding. You have, and obviously for the Giants, I think they have their chances to still be in, wild card contention next year.
I feel like the Jaguars definitely. I mean, by the way, Doug Peterson and Brian Dable should definitely be considered for Coach of the Year. I don't know who did it. I think Doug Peterson. Turning a complete dumpster fire, 2-14. And as do I think who feels the worst about this. Jaguars' success. Urban Meyer, how failure he had.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, talk about comeback player of the year material right there. And just a great second season. And he truly looks like the franchise quarterback they've desperately needed for a long time moving forward. And that's a problem for the rest of us in the AFC South. Because, I mean, honestly, their biggest threat next year is probably still going to be Tennessee, I would say. I mean, because defensively, we're going to be able to compete with them. Our only issue is I don't know if we're going to have an offense. Now, Ryan Crawford, our new GM, he's working on it, I'm sure. But, we got a lot of work to do in the Music City to get the Titans back on the right track. But, Jaguars, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for a while. And, as I said, for the Giants, Daniel Jones, I mean, definitely in terms of comeback players, Brian Dable saved that man's career. And he saved Saquon's career. I mean, that was Saquon's best year in a long time. And it's good to see a New York team be back in the playoffs and be competitive, because the NFL needs New York to be good.
I mean, look how New York had success in the early 2010s. The back-to-back Jets success. I mean, I know they lost in the 2 consecutive AFC championships. They had a good run, and then the year after that, in 2012, the Giants were the Super Bowl champions, so they had a lot of success then. Then after the win by the Giants, everything went downhill.
Oh yeah, it's been a long walk in the ability. It's been in the long. It has been a long walk in the wilderness. That's for sure for the Giants. But it's just good to see them be back in playoff contention, even though it was at the expense of a dominant Philadelphia Eagles team. And I'll say this: I was surprised that they did that. I thought it would be a much tighter game. But Jalen Hurts looks healthy. That offense was revving, and the defense obviously came out and were dominant. And now when we look at these conference title games, and I kind of shift the focus to that now, because first up, you have 49ers and the Eagles in the NFC title game at 3 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday afternoon. Then following that at 6:30 roughly will be the Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to find out who's going to the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Before that, we have the divisional rounds picks. On the Eagles and Giants, we both picked the Giants, I guess.
I think we did.
Yeah,
I think I truly bought in that this was going to be a 2007, 2011 repeat, and I
yeah, that's true. That's why. So you got the 49ers right. I got the Cowboys wrong. You got the Chiefs right. I got the Jags wrong. But you got the Bills wrong, and I got the Bengals right. But still, though, you choose the one for Nick Hill.
Absolutely. So we only have 3 more games to pick, Gus. So can't believe we are
coming. Oh my god!
So I guess let's go in the order of these games are played. Let's start with the 49ers Eagles, 3 p.m. What is your take on this matchup?
First of all, we're gonna truly see if Brock Purdy is for real or is just a feel-good story, because He's 7-0 with Kyle Shanahan. And of course, he deserves a lot of credit from being Mr. Relevant to Mr. Really Relevant and being a solid quarterback with with now a playoff win and no back-to-back playoff wins, 2 playoff wins, which is something Dak Prescott took like what, his 7 years in the league, and now Brock Purdy has in one season. So, uh, I don't know. I feel like, of course, being in Philadelphia changed completely the landscape because the 49ers had two home playoff games, but it all depends if how Jalen Hurt is health wise because he dealt with injuries on the end of the regular season. How much? What if is he gonna be 100%?
Well, he looked 100% Saturday, and unless something has changed, I think he'll be 100% on Sunday as well. And it's just gonna when you just look at the rosters here, if any team's going to shut down these Eagles, it's probably going to be the 49ers, And as much crap as we gave Dak when we're talking about the Cowboys, you do have to give credit to the 49ers defense. We look at guys like a Fred Warner, for example, just dominant, absolutely dominant performance. They have a lot of great players on that side of the ball. Nick Bosa, for example, and if anyone's going to stop Philly, it's going to be the Niners. And really that the key matchup there truly is it's the trenches. Like I mentioned in Bengals Bills, when you look at the Eagles offensive line, the Eagles offensive line has probably been the best in the entire league all year. These are mostly Pro Bowl guys, but you're facing guys like Nick Bosa on the other side, and that is truly, I think, going to decide this football game. Can they get to Jalen Hurts? Can they affect him? Can they try to take a guy like AJ Brown out of the game? Can they really try to maybe make it one-dimensional? I really think if you can try to make the Eagles one-dimensional, try to make them throw the ball. And I know Jalen Hurts has been a lot better throwing the ball this year, but the Eagles' bread and butter is their running attack, and you just have to find a way to get them into negative situations.
That's true. I feel like you put a lot under pressure, but my pick's gonna be the Eagles. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles going back to another Super Bowl after 7 years. No, after 6 years.
I think, as much as obviously as dominant the Eagles have been all year, and I know they're hosting this game, I feel like this Niners team, when you look at what their personnel wise, they have what it takes to take out this Niners team. And it really is going to come down to, can Brock Purdy take care of the football and make good decisions? I'm going to say yes. I think the Niners are going to go into Philadelphia and find a way to win and get themselves back to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2019.
We'll see who's gonna win. Let's go to the American Football Conference.
Yep, we got Bengals at Chiefs. And here, obviously, we talked about Mahomes. Is he going to be healthy? How good is he going to be? And then I think truly here for the Chiefs, there's almost, I think, a bit of a mental block because it's not just the fact you lost to the Bengals in the AFC title game last year. It's the fact that you lost to them in Cincinnati in the regular season this year. You lost to them in the regular season last year. So right now, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are 3-0 against the Chiefs the last 2 seasons. How do the Chiefs break that streak?
I think it's doing what Bills did not do. Run the ball, force the O line. You have to force the Bengals offensive line because they had a lot of issues, especially with injuries. So you have to force the offensive line in that matter.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Pacheco is going to be a huge factor. He had 98 yards and 12 carries, had a 39-yard rush in that game on Saturday. So if they can finally establish the run, and obviously, Travis Kelce had 14 catches, was a real safety blanket. But really, outside of that, who else is going to step up? How about Isaiah Pacheco? Can Kadarius Toney be a X factor? Can Juju Smith-Schuster be an X factor for the Chiefs? And on the other side, for the Bengals, really getting to Patrick Mahomes, like if you can get to him with that ankle situation, he isn't going to be as mobile. And that could be a detriment for the Chiefs offense. And, Joe Burrow, I have no qualms about him. I know he's going to be calm. He's going to be collected. He's going to calmly lead that offense into Kansas City. And once again, I like running the ball for the Chiefs. Running the ball for the Bengals as well. Establishing Joe Mixon will be a huge X factor in this game. But I trust the Bengals more right now. I really do trust Cincinnati way more. I trust Joe Burrow. I trust these guys' ability. They're the ultimate road warriors. And I think for the second straight year, they are going into Arrowhead and winning the AFC title game.
Yeah, I think so too. Give me Cincinnati Bengals. I think, it's going to be Cincinnati versus another California team in the Super Bowl in the West, now in Arizona.
Yeah. And, well, at least for me, it would be California. It'd be Bengals 49ers. For you, it'd be Bengals and Eagles. She took Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's true.
I am kind of scared that we both picked against Patrick Mahomes. And if he goes out and wins this game on a bad leg, that is a legacy moment for Patrick Mahomes.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And also Andy Reid, because Andy Reid is new for having this great teams that always fell short in the NFC Championship. The Eagles fans know a lot about that.
And honestly, a low-key part of me wants to be wrong on both of these games, because if I'm wrong on both of these games, we get Andy Reid and the Chiefs versus Philadelphia. And think about that storyline for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's
so that would be absolutely incredible. So we'll see what happens. You have 49ers, Eagles, and Bengals, Chiefs on Sunday afternoon and evening to determine who is going to Glendale, Arizona for the Super Bowl. One more NFL note I want to discuss here. The Carolina Panthers have selected a new head coach. It's none other than former Indianapolis Colts head coach Frank Reich. Frank Reich was the first ever quarterback in Panthers history, but of course Reich had a disastrous in Indianapolis and got fired. I think they should have kept Steve Wilkes. I mean, Steve Wilkes turned around that team this year, and they had a chance to go to the playoffs. And I think he could have built something moving forward for the Panthers. And Reich, yes, he is a good offensive play caller, and he's a good play designer. But his game management skills are horrible. And that's why he didn't succeed in Indianapolis. And if he couldn't succeed in Indianapolis, I don't see him succeeding in Carolina, because right now they don't have a QB, and they're going to have to draft one. He's going to have to develop one. I just don't see this working.
I mean, if you have Sam Darnold, don't forget about that.
Sam Darnold's done. They'll draft some. They may draft like a Will Levis, who I don't believe in Will Levis either. But
About Hendon Hooker. I think. I mean, I know we're gonna have our draft show probably in a month or so. I think Hendon Hooker is gonna be the steal of the draft.
I hope so. I'm definitely high on Hendon, and I'll be rooting for whoever drafts him. He'll be my second favorite team, unless it's the Titans, and then that's just amazing. So, but I'm not high on it. Actually, I know a friend who's a Panthers fan who's considering giving up his fandom, because he's just, in his words, it's another loser move by a loser franchise. So he's not a fan of the hire.
I think he can be a promising coach. I think Jim Irsay probably had a lot of rush, probably didn't give enough time, especially the situation with Carson Wentz. Definitely that cemented his time in Indianapolis, but maybe he can find success in Carolina.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I'll be curious to see if they keep Steve Wilkes or if he'll go somewhere else as a DC. Anyway, the last American story I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of a off the field story, but it involves sports media, is Bally Sports. And I don't know if you were still here when they did this. Remember like how when you watched MLB in the past, it would be like Fox Sports South, but then in like
Yeah, I remember Fox Sports South, Fox Sports Southeast. The regional channels that broadcast MLB, NBA, and NHL.
yeah. So now, were you still in America when they switched over to Bali?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. I remember Bally Sports and when Fox was sold to was
Sinclair?
sold to Disney.
Yeah. So all of these sports networks became Bali Sports, and so now if you wanted to watch like the Braves, for example, you had to go through Bali. So now it's being reported that Bali is apparently going for bankruptcy. And this would be a major story for the sports media industry because these local regional networks are huge moneymakers for the NBA, the NHL, and MLB because that's how you can watch these games. And if you think about these sports networks are huge drivers for cable subscriptions. But as we know with cord cutting and all that, it's getting trickier and trickier. And more and more carriers don't even carry Bali. Like I have for YouTube TV. YouTube TV does not have Bali Sports. Dish Network no longer has Bali Sports. So in order for me to watch the Braves, I'm gonna have to go on, some secret sauce sites to get my Braves fix. But right
Or the
now,
radio.
yeah, according to Bloomberg, right now, Sinclair owes $55 billion in sports and media rights to like the NBA, NHL, and they're not going to be able to pay that. They don't have the money to pay that, and it's interesting. I think when you look at it, it's partially you have less cable subscribers. And really think about like especially MLB, it's an older audience, so you're going to lose more and more of that audience each year, and those are the people who have cable. And it's just your audience is dwindling. And plus, for these leagues like NBA, NHL, MLB, it's really hard to watch your product because you have to have this specific service. And if you don't have a specific service, tough luck. Like the NFL, you can watch it over the air. You can watch Fox, ABC, CBS over the air, but you can't watch Bally Sports over the air. And it's
And that's why the NFL is driven further and further apart through MLB, NBA, and NHL is because they're a steady league that where you're gonna watch every weekend. It's gonna be 1 p.m., 4 p.m. on CBS and Fox, 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. on Sunday on NBC. Thursday night went to Amazon, but Thursday Night Football has always been an experiment, kind of. It's like the hot potato. It's yours. It went from NBC to CBS to NFL Network to Amazon Prime. So Thursday Night Football is not something the networks want. The networks want the Sunday games, the Sunday afternoon, the 1 p.m., the 4 p.m., probably even the Saturday Night Football and the Monday Night Football.
Absolutely. And fans just want the access. They want to be able to watch these games. And they're just really put themselves in a horrible position to not. Think about right now. You can pay for a Bally Sports subscription through the Bally Sports app. The only problem is the last time I checked, you can only do this in specific markets. So like the Tennessee, Georgia market, you can't do it.
Oh, and my friend Lucas Ardito, which is a big NBA fan, we shout out to him. Is my big friend Pedro D'Ameto and Miguel Ribeiro as well. And with something that me and Lucas always discuss about the access of watching sports, not only in America but in Brazil, has becoming so different over the years. Now in Brazil, to watch even the state championship, you have one game on Sunday on a public TV, Record, and then you have two cable companies. You have the TNT Sports having one game, and then you have the subscription through the federation, called Paulistão Play, and you also have games on YouTube. So many places to watch now.
Oh yeah, and asking people to pay $20 a month extra just for access to these regional sports networks is just not a sustainable business model because it's not like you're paying for playoff games, you're paying for just random regular season games. And it's like for the Braves, like no one individual regular season game is that big or that important. And I know when they get to the playoffs, I can watch it on TBS and major networks that that I already have through cable, like or for like the Hawks or Grizzlies. I know when the time comes and the NBA playoffs show up, I'm able to watch their games on TNT and ESPN. And if I can have those channels available to me at all times, great. I'll watch more of the regular season games. But if I don't, then I'll just watch it when I can watch it and not go out of my way for an extra streaming platform for regular season games that I wasn't always watching anyway because there's too many of every single one of those sporting
I mean,
leagues.
think about it. Didn't probably this was some sort of a trickle down effect of load management that NBA does it on the regular season? NBA does literally devalue the regular season. Expect what fans to be paying subscription through this regional sport networks. Of course, it's a trickle down effect.
Oh, absolutely. It's actually on on TikTok this week, I've noticed several people they're making videos discussing how they don't love the NBA like they used to, and how the load management. Like I saw this one guy, he was talking about how he feels that the load management's an insult because he wanted to be an NBA player. He practiced hours every single day, but he just didn't have the natural ability to be a basketball player. And he seems like to me it's he said like to me it's insulting that these players that have the god-given talent don't go out every single day and compete. And think about like these, like when the Lakers go to Memphis, for example, that's your one chance every year to go see LeBron play in person. But what if he takes the night off? Then that game that you saved up money for to go watch LeBron come to Memphis, you wasted because you didn't get to see your superstar.
Yeah, and that's why the NFL is the king, because even you don't consider even really even think about doing load management doing NFL regular season. Can you believe, like, oh,
Well,
on week 9 I'm going to take a load management?
I mean, every loss is important in the NFL. You know, like every result's important. I mean, the only week where you are worried about maybe not seeing the stars is the last week. But that
And
going.
even then, look how there were teams that were, I think, was like what, the Giants that didn't arrest anybody. There were teams that didn't even give a rest when they were sure to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the Giants were like the only team that did. The Bucks didn't rest, but everyone else didn't because they had something to play for, and that is super duper important. Also, just briefly, the Lady Vols only down 7 now, 40-33. 2 minutes left in the second
Great,
quarter.
great second quarter,
Oh, yeah, they're
16 and
coming back.
7.
Jordan Horston, what an offensive rebound, putting it back up. It's a 5-point game in Thompson Bowling Arena. They're going nuts. I don't have the sound on, but you can see the student section is full. The whole arena's on their feet. Let's go. So hopefully they can. It's going to be I think, a fight there in the second half for the in that UConn Tennessee game. Great to see. Great response. But yeah, but kind of just wrapping up on this topic. I think what you're going to have to see, you're going to have to, at least the leagues are going to have to move to a model like the MLS is moving to with the Apple TV. You have to give fans an easier access to your product. You have to find a way to get the product.
Oh, definitely, I agree.
Yeah, you can't have them jump through hoops because otherwise they're just going to give up because there's too many other options. They're going to give up and they're going to go watch Wednesday on Netflix or something, or watch Invisible on Amazon Prime.
And for the diehard fans,
go ahead.
And for the diehard fans, that gives a chance for the radio audience to go up, because diehard fans that wants to know how the score, how's the game, they can listen on the radio. That's a yay for me, because here on the radio industry, we love when games are hard to find because that drives up the audience for radio. Kind of ironic.
And the Braves radio does a really, really good job.
It's still Chip. Oh, thank you, Miguel Ribeiro. His restaurant is really good. He has some really interesting recipes. He is Miguel Ribeiro, great friend of mine. He's tuned in, even though he doesn't understand anything. Valeu, Miguelzinho. Tamo junto, Miguel. Valeu. He's a Corinthians fan. Thank you, Miguel Ribeiro, for tuning in. Briefly, Brazilian topics, state championships underway. I'm going to, of course, talk about my Paulistão, the Paulista Championship. Looks like um, Palmeiras, Corinthians, and São Paulo are all going to win. São Paulo 1-0 over Portuguesa. They scored in the first half. Luciano, the game's still underway with, I believe, it's on the second half. 5 minutes to play in the second half. Corinthians had a good win, 2-1, even though they didn't play convincingly. I feel like their lack of midfield creation, they don't have a lot of ability there. Juliano, he went in the second half, played decent, but Michael got injured again. But definitely, Renato Augusto is very important to this team, and I feel like it's a lot on his shoulder, especially for a veteran player like him. But Corinthians was able to get the win and is right now on the second place of his group behind São Bento, which is, by the way, the biggest surprise of all, because São Bento, for me, came to the Paulistão as like a team was going to fight for relegation. They had a really, not like a really tight budget, did not spend a lot on the off season, but they're right now 8 points, top in the Group C, one over Inter Limeira. Maybe it's because they did not play only play one big team was Palmeiras, and they tie on the road. But great campaign by São Bento. Palmeiras, I had the chance to watch yesterday on the sidelines. That was amazing. The first time I watched one of the big four teams like that close to the action. First of all, it's a surreal experience to watch the game so close. You can hear everything. You can feel the crowd, and Palmeiras play with all the reserves because they're gonna have a big game on Saturday. We're gonna get to in a couple of minutes, but they get the win, 3-1. I mean, the only issue is that Abel Ferreira. I know he defended a lot of his players, and he said, "Oh, the roster is what does that matter? We don't want any big hires." But Palmeiras fans know deep down that they don't have a good striker. Their options, are not good. Rafael Navarro scored, but he missed big chances in the first half. Floco Lopez, which was looked like a big signing last season, did not play good as well. Breno Lopez, I know he was a hero, scoring the title goal in the Libertadores 2020, but still not play well. So Palmeiras going to have to go to market to get a good striker, because that's the key issue. I know they got a good, they sold two key players, as Danilo and Scarpa left for Nottingham Forest, but I know, and Palmeiras going to have a big test on Saturday, as I said, because they're going to have the Brazilian Super Cup final against Flamengo in Brasilia. And if Palmeiras lose this game, I think it's going to be a lot of criticism, a lot of questioning of Abel Ferreira, Leila Pereira, Anderson Barros, the coach and the front office. But and also Flamengo too has a big test. It's going to be the first final. Vitor Pereira plays as Flamengo head coach. Big test. I know it's still early in the season, but this game can determine a lot for both of those teams.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be the first and probably a series. First in a series of matchups, and you want to get off to a good start.
Oh, that's true. They might face again in a Libertadores or a Brazilian Cup, or even be neck and neck, fighting for a Brazilian national championship. So it's a final everybody has been waiting since they met in the Libertadores 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's going to be entertaining to see who strikes first in that rivalry this year.
That's true. It's going to be on a neutral site in the Brazilian capital, which is good to see Brazilian capital, hosting something that is not something that is attack. I know it's going to be a lot of attacks, but sports attack, not bad attacks. And I'll say I think Palmeiras is gonna win. Palmeiras is on hungry for titles. I think the more they put pressure on, the more they won. When they won the Libertadores back in 2021, they were a lot under pressure. They go and beat Flamengo. I think that scenario is built up again. I think Palmeiras is gonna win the Brazilian Super Cup.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I do want to mention that game's at halftime now. Lady Vols, it's 40-36 UConn. And Gino Ariyama, I couldn't hear it, but I was just like trying to lip read him. He was mad. Apparently, UConn, they only scored 7 points during the second quarter, and he is upset about officiating. So he was complaining about the officiating, and Tennessee fans are letting him have it right now.
How I imagine. When does Gino Auriemma not complain about refereeing?
Oh, never, never, especially in Tennessee. Like especially when he's in the house that Pat Summer built. Of course he's going to whine about it.
And last but not least, congratulations to Palmeiras, back-to-back Copinha champions, beating América Mineiro 2-1. Palmeiras has a big academy. 10 years ago, Palmeiras Academy was, underfunded, did not produce any good values. But now Palmeiras, dominating under 20, under 17, under 15, and creating more, good players like Hendrick that just was sold to Real Madrid. There's Estevão, and I think what's his name was. There was two more players that look interesting. Aranha, the goalkeeper, is good. So we'll see what's going to be the future for those young talents. But they already got the Palmeiras another Copinha championship last yesterday in Sao Paulo. So that's it for tonight's Two Countries, Two Americas All Sports, episode 61. So how's the score in Knoxville?
Yeah, it's at halftime. It's 40-36 UConn. It's going to be one heck of a second half. Let's see if the Lady Vols can come back and pull off the upset. And we'll see how the officiating goes here because Gino is letting them have it. It's going to be a heated one, which is exactly what UConn Tennessee should be. So for Gus Tomazeli, down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nicholas Hill, live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the United States. You've been listening to episode 61 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, recorded here on January 26, 2023. When we return next week, we'll have reaction to the NFL championship games. And obviously, we kind of start teasing the Super Bowl a little bit. And we'll probably say that really for the week after, I would imagine. And whatever else happens in the wonderful wide world of sports. Y'all have a good one.